The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NBA.
The Lakers lose a controversy-filled Game 4.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast.
A lot of layers to this onion that we're going to be peeling back, some of which involve ultimately credit for the Timberwolves, who've been a very good team.
Things.
You and I said before the series began, they're very good. Some of the layers we're going to peel back reveal just a really crappy-tasting onion. Like an onion that has been moldy and rotten and needed to get
not one of those delicious bloomin' onions you might get from the restaurant.
Oh, nope. Well, if it's a restaurant, it's got an F in its window because it's not monitoring the stuff in the fridge and in the dry storage area. But one of the things I will say, though, regarding the close of these games with Minnesota versus the Lakers, and it's something that I'll be honest, I did not consider as much heading into this series just because the Lakers had been playing very well heading into the playoffs. And LeBron and Luka are, if you had to draft among the league, two guys, if you had to draft two guys that you would want to close out important games, I'm not saying LeBron and Luka would be number one and number two, but they would get picked early. The Wolves, even with the new addition of Julius Randle this season, just from their continuity for the last couple of years, Ant being around a couple of years, Chris Finch being around a couple of years, they are clearly in better synergy down the stretch of games from having spent, if nothing else, more time together. Even if you think the talent favors them, so does the time. And that is something I will admit I did not consider as much heading into this series that I think we are starting to see as a pattern over the course of this series.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. And you look at, and there are a lot of reasons for it. You can talk about players, you can talk about coaching, and all of these things are relevant. And you look at it, the Lakers had a 10-point lead going into the fourth quarter. They had they lost the lead, but then, they pushed it back up. I think I'm just kind of bouncing around this. They were up by 6 with 7:27 left. They were up by 5 with 5:06 left. They lost the lead and got back up by 2 a couple times. They kept fighting. And the thing that is going to be the dominant question from this game, without question, is JJ Redick's decision to play his starting lineup the entire second half. And his starting lineup for the third quarter for the second half. He did not make any subs. He swapped out Dorian Finney-Smith into that third quarter starting lineup for Jackson Hayes, who may not be allowed in the building in Game 5.
Even when Jax was starting to have a good game and his opening minutes in the first quarter, I mean, I know it's a bar that is below ground to clear, but they were like his best minutes. Yeah, there's his best minutes of the series. Then he picked up a foul and attack, and it's like, all right, we're done.
Yeah,
we're done.
It's who is it? The Godfather. You're not gonna see him anymore.
Paulie.
Yeah,
Paulie.
Yeah, Paulie.
He sold out the old man.
Yeah, you're not gonna see him anymore. So
he left the gun and took the cannolis.
They're not even giving him cannolis. I think nobody was upset with that choice. But there's no question. This is the first time since people started keeping track of these things that a team did not make a single substitution in the second half of a playoff game. The flip side of this, and I do think it's worth discussing and worth noting, is while Minnesota did make some substitutions in that second half, Anthony Edwards, I don't believe, came out of the game. And Julius Randle played about 96% of the second half. So they had guys who, their primary players were
you are
out.
correct on both counts.
Yeah. Who played, big minutes just like the Lakers players did.
But not nearly as big. Not even
No.
close.
And, look, I mean, Luka played 46 minutes in this game. And LeBron was at, I just moved off the box score to look at the game cast. LeBron was at 46. So, those guys sat for 2 minutes in the first half. You want to start on this? Like, what good move, bad move? Like, I
didn't like it.
Can tell by social media reaction. I think I'm the only person who's okay with this.
I didn't like it in the moment, and I actually tweeted out. There's a couple reasons I didn't like it. First of all, I think it was a bit of an extreme reaction to being up, and the idea of having multiple days to rest afterwards. The Lakers don't play game 5 until Wednesday. So I think it was leaning too much into that rest opportunity and not enough into the realities of the particular game. I think especially with the Lakers having a lead, you could have put in Jordan Goodwin, Gabe Vincent, Jared Vanderbilt for at least a few minutes of the top of the fourth quarter or the end of the third, just to get some guys some rest. But also,
I wouldn't have done anything in the third quarter.
Maybe not in the third quarter, but definitely the fourth. Definitely the fourth. Here's the biggest thing, though, and I called this out in real time, that I did not like about doing this. Once you start getting to like the 7 or 6 minute mark of the fourth quarter, you're pot committed, because you can't just basically spell out in neon skywriting, I don't trust anybody else on this team. And then after sitting guys for 18 minutes, say, I need you to go in and guys I don't trust.
Yeah.
And I think that was the biggest problem I had with this, is you end up pot committed with no outs. If you end up going to overtime, there's a chance that one of those 5 could die. I mean, it just
you're right.
I understand why JJ did it and what he was thinking. I think it was too extreme of an approach that did not allow you nearly enough outs to manage the rest of the game.
What I am still thinking about, and probably I'll rewatch some stuff and probably spend more time thinking about it, whatever. It's pretty clear when he did make a substitution in the third quarter, this probably was going to go through to the fourth. And I think some of it was, Redick said it after the game, it was not necessarily the plan. They didn't go into the second half saying, tell us, like, this was them saying, like, we have extra timeouts. You could tell they were holding on to timeouts to be able to have that, near the end of the third. I think they had 4. And some stuff happened in this game that was challenging, it kind of didn't go their way for that. I think it was pretty clear that those guys weren't going to come out. And if they did, they were going to come out for such a short period of time that I don't ultimately know if it would have made a difference.
Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Halo as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. No, seriously, pair a controller or 4 to the Fire TV 4K stick and play your favorite Xbox games anywhere. If you're a hardened gamer and want to have your PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, and Xbox too, then this is for you. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On, all one word, Fire TV Locked On, to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, Fire TV Cube 3rd generation.
The Knicks pull out another nail biter, 94-93 over the Pistons.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast.
The Knicks 94-93 beat the Pistons. I was not the most confident that they were going to pull this one out for a minute there. Detroit kind of seemed to find their second win in the second half. They were down by, I think, as much as 16 in the first half, and managed to come back and take a double-digit lead over the Knicks in the third into the fourth quarter. Jalen Brunson gets tackled by Dennis Schroeder. Not a foul, by the way, but, just gets tackled. That was pretty much allowed for most of the game, and falls on his ankle oddly, or maybe his knee. I'm still not sure which it was. They were saying ankle on the broadcast, but he came out with a big knee brace on, and that seemed like that was what he was grabbing at, was his right knee more so than his right ankle. But either way, he gets back in the game, goes bonkers to end this one, ends with in the fourth quarter, 15 points on 7 of 11 shooting. Just an absolute masterclass from him down the stretch. Just completely put the team on his back. Karl Anthony Towns, 8 points, including 2 just nonsensical shots to put the Knicks to bring the Knicks even and then take them ahead in this game. Just a magical ending to this one. Maybe not so magical for Detroit fans who are, I think, are maybe a little upset about how things ultimately ended with a no call on Tim Hardaway Jr. to end the game.
Yeah, I was screaming the whole last 2 minutes. I scared my dog. I scared my neighbors. I scared my girlfriend. It was all worth it, because today was the day Karl Anthony Towns became a Knick. Today was the day Jalen Brunson reminded everyone who he is. And most importantly, the New York Knicks reminded JB Bickerstaff who they are, as he said in a mic'd up in the second quarter, I believe. He said, "We know who they are. They're not doing," and that was the quote. The rest of this is a paraphrase. Like, they're not doing anything special. Like, we are hurting ourselves. And the implication there was obvious. These are a bunch of pansies. I want to use a different word, but I can't. And if we just play our game, we're going to beat them, and we're going to embarrass them. And you know what? He was right for about 2 quarters, because the Knicks played about as bad as they could have after a fantastic start where they didn't maybe stretch the lead out as much as they could. And then in the fourth quarter, JB Bickerstaff said, "We know who they are." You know who they are now. They're Jalen Brunson. They're Karl Anthony Towns. They're 2 of probably the 5 best shot makers on planet Earth. Just a ridiculous display down the stretch of this game. Josh Hart, look, me more than you, man, but I've argued for him to play less. This was a game where, look, Detroit at times made it painful for the Knicks to have him on the floor. He made it worth it for the Knicks with his rebounding, with his defense, the strip off Cade on the second to last possession of this game. He was extraordinary. And you know what? JB Bickerstaff roasting the Knicks. Shout out to you, buddy, for using your challenge on a loose ball in the first quarter. That was wrong, by the way. The Knicks win the challenge to get the ball back. They make a shot there in a game they ultimately win by 1 point. And then you can't use your challenge on what probably was a foul by Josh Hart, at least by regular season standards, closing out to Tim Hardaway in the final seconds. Alex, you're going to make the argument. I would probably agree with that argument. The way this game was called, you can't call a foul in that situation, because it would be utterly inconsistent with the football game, maybe more so the MMA cage match that was going on the Pistons side throughout. But you know what, JB Bickerstaff, walk out on the court, complain all you want. Cade Cunningham going to be an awesome player. At least in these big moments, he is not Jalen Brunson yet. And frankly, he's not Karl Anthony Towns yet, who with that, again, bad possessions, but just shot clock winding down, baseline fadeaway falling out of bounds, 28-foot three, 2 of the gutsiest, 2 of the best shots given the timing in the game I have ever seen a Knick make. And Kat, like, congratulations, buddy. You're a Knick for life after that.
Yeah, I'll just get the foul take out of the way early here and just get it done with. But I mean, in my opinion, I don't think you can. And look, it would be painful, but I would have to admit this the same way if the same thing had happened to the Knicks. But like, you can't be okay with how the game is called for most of it and be like, this is Detroit basketball. Like, this is how we play. This is what we do. We're tough. We punch people in the face all game and we get away with it because we're the bad boys, whatever. And then be like, oh, but he touched me a little bit. Like, that's a foul. Like, no, that's just not that. I'm sorry. It was consistent officiating. So like, you either want there to be no rules or you want there to be rules. And it seemed obvious that Detroit was okay with there being no rules. I mean, if they did a full 48-minute report for this game, it would be 300 pages long to go through all the things that should have been fouls that weren't fouls, because they swallowed their whistles, especially in the second half. Like, it was just It was like football. I mean, it was just guys were going inside, cradling the ball, and you could see, I mean, this is on both sides at different points of the game, but you could see like guys ripping at their arms, like pulling their arms away from the ball and not getting called for fouls. It's like, so okay, you're okay with that, but you're not okay with Tim Hardaway selling contact late in the game and not getting a foul call. Like, so I'm sorry, the team that's been, chanting "F you Brunson" because he allegedly foul baits all the time is now going to cry.
By the way, two free throws this game for Jalen Brunson. So.
Right, exactly. Who didn't bait contact like at all in this game, and also didn't get any calls in this game, and still managed to drop 32 on your sorry franchise. But you're gonna have fans in the front row heckling him and going like this, and chucking their head back and everything, and then you're gonna cry a river about this. Like, okay, well, it's sad. Sorry, you guys aren't going to see a win on your home court in the playoffs for 20 years. But unfortunately, I think this one's probably over, because I feel pretty confident that if the refs weren't calling it tight, they're probably going to call it tight now, because the Pistons fans also felt the need to pout them with garbage and make sure that they needed a police escort off of the floor on their way out of here. Stay classy, Detroit. You get everything you deserve in this series. Anyway, that one was for all the Detroit fans that will be in our YouTube comments. Oh wait, they won't, because they're front runners and they only come in when they're winning. Anyway,
we've gotten some nice comments. I want to say thank you to the people who posted nice comments.
There have been some nice comments. There have also been plenty where they only show up, after game 2 when they win the game, and then we haven't heard from them since. So, have fun with that. Anyway, that's to take nothing away from the fact that the Knicks players, I mean, in spite of Tibbs, if I'm being completely honest, came through and won this game, because I think that Tibbs, once things loosened up foul call wise in the second half, I think he was too slow to adjust. He didn't have help coming into the backcourt to get the ball over the timeline fast enough. There was like almost, 8-second violations, whatever. There was also, the play where Brunson got hurt was one where he was just getting blitzed and probably could have used a Josh Hart in the backcourt to help throw the ball to. But then on top of that, just continually, we're just like, we're going to play their level. We're going to play the Detroit's level and get to the inside and, go up for layups incessantly or whatever, which maybe you can sort of forgive that in a way, because the Knicks just weren't making threes. But after like the 4th time where you go in and realize, oh, everybody's just going to foul everybody in this half and nobody's going to get calls on the inside, you should probably change your strategy and start looking to try to get shooters involved again, because you're better off at least taking the chance on that, like taking a chance on 30% 3-point shooting than you are on 30% 2-point shooting on the inside. So, I think that there was some things to work on for Tibbs in this one, but luckily they had Jalen Brunson with his post-injury Willis Reed moment come back in and just completely dominate the 4th quarter of this game.
There's nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute Major League Baseball showdown or soaking in the excitement of an NBA playoff game. Finding great seats, though, that used to be a challenge until Game Time. With last-minute deals, all-in prices, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Plus, ticket prices actually drop as the beginning of the game gets closer, so you can score amazing seats at a great price. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
A massive win for the Indiana Pacers. They take Game 4 in Milwaukee, a huge road win.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast.
Their offense is just a buzzsaw at its best. When they play the way they want, they call it random when they're talking to me. They call it random, in other interview settings. But to them, it's not random. It's concepts they know. It's movement they know. It's passing and screening that they're comfortable with, and they know when it should and shouldn't come, and they can react to situations in front of them and apply the most pressure-filled thing to the game. And that sounds so simple to say, but it's so hard for teams to defend. Ask Joe Mazzulla last year which series was the hardest for the Celtics. He said it on Locked On Celtics. He said it was the Pacers. That was their only sweep, and they said it was their hardest series because it's so hard to guard the Pacers when they're playing their best offense. In the second half of Game 3, they did not. They said it themselves a bunch. They said we were stagnant. The ball was moving around the perimeter. We were not driving enough. We were not flowing. And it was obvious. They scored 18 points in the third quarter. The Bucks ran away with the game. Tonight, they never had a moment. In fact, I would argue through all 4 games, this was their most complete offensive game. Game 1 and 2, there were moments in the fourth quarter where they were a little too jump shoot heavy, settling a little bit, and the Bucks kind of chewed at the lead. And this game, that stretch never really happened. They kept their foot on the gas the whole time. Just a fantastic offensive night. And to me, it wasn't that they didn't adjust from game 3. They clearly did. The rotation, much different, right? Jarris Walker, the first sub of both halves after about 4.5 minutes. Different stretches of who the front court group is, when the bench and who is with the bench at different times, right? They certainly changed things up, but I think they just got back to their style, right? Rick Carlisle told us after the game, he thought in game 3, and by thought, I mean he checked tracking data, I believe, that had their second most isolation possessions of any game the Pacers have played this entire season. They had very few in game 4. The Bucks switching defense gave them no issues, right? They were willing to screen to get Tyrese Haliburton going left. He doesn't want to go left when he's just beating the guy one-on-one when he has a screen, and he can either reject that screen and go the way he wants and throw a defender off, or he can take the screen and create an advantage and get an opening going the way he doesn't want. Win-win, right? They did that a lot. Miles Turner setting screens, getting Haliburton going left early in the game really set the tone for the Pacers. We'll talk a lot about Miles Turner later in this podcast. I debated opening this episode with him. He was that good. But the Pacers offense was the story, right? Haliburton sees 2, gets it to the open man. That guy scores. Haliburton sees 2, the open man gets the ball. The Bucks rotate, one more pass, open shot. They hit it. And the starters have been doing that for a lot of the series. And to be clear, the starters were tremendous, right? I talked after game 3 about, yes, Haliburton was not good compared to his standards. Turner's worst postseason game maybe the last 2 years. Nembhard was 2 for 8. That's 3 starters that were just not good. Tyrese Haliburton, 6 for 11 in this game. Andrew Nembhard was 8 for 14. Andrew Nembhard had 20 points. I have no idea when he scored 20 points. Like, it was the quietest 20-point game I've ever seen. Ever seen. Like, would anyone rank him as a top 2 or 3 performer for the Pacers in this game? No, and he had 20 points, 2 assists, good defense, 1 turnover, plus 20. He was great. And Miles Turner was 9 for 13 and was the standout in just about every way, which we'll get to again later in this episode. Those 3 recovering made the starters hum. Neesmith's been rock solid all series and was tremendous again. Had the highlight of the game. Pascal Siakam, what he would consider probably for himself a pretty pedestrian game with only 12 points and 4 assists, still made half his shots and had the best probably defensive half anyone's had on Giannis in the series. In the first half, he soaked up a lot of fouls that kind of limited his minutes and changed when he was out there. But all 5 starters for the Pacers shot 50% or better in this game. And it was easy. It was back to game 1 and 2 where it was easy for them to create those shots, right? And it's so boring for me to keep walking away with the same, look how easy offense is for the Pacers. But I'm just not stunned. But, I thought I picked Pacers in 7. That might very well still happen. I don't want to get ahead of myself here. But it has been much easier for them to score in this series than I anticipated. And that happened again in this game. Now, the starters have been good a lot, right? They've been winning. The Pacers have been winning the Giannis minutes in some of these games. In games 1 and 2, they certainly did. But the Bucks have found answers with bench-heavy groups or Giannis plus bench-heavy groups to chew back into these games, right? The Pacers bench has been, let's say, rocky in the postseason so far, with some guys having good nights here but not there, or there but not here, whatever phrasing you want to use. I don't care. They have not been at the level they were at last year. I don't think anyone would even get close to debating that. They were very good today. This was the best Pacers bench game of the season. Some of that is on individual performances. Some of that is on fascinating new but useful lineup combinations. Some of that's just on the play better adjustment, the best one you could possibly make. But, like, look, we can bellyache, and we did, about rotations. I think people were missing the boat saying, why is Ben Shepherd playing? Ben Shepherd probably should play. Maybe, the combos is what I talked about being the issue, and they changed those in a meaningful way. Groups with Walker plus Shepherd together were quite good. Toppin was not the first sub, something that Kyle Taylor talked about yesterday, albeit in slightly different context. It was Jarris Walker instead. They changed up who TJ McConnell was playing with in the backcourt sometimes. It just all works. Now, obviously, huge caveat. Benedict Mathurin did not play in this game. That had, to me, little bearing on the bench being much better. A lot of that was the combination specifically, but that is noteworthy when discussing their rotation. But this was the best bench game, right? Jarris Walker, 4 for 5. All of his shots were threes. I mean, his shooting development in the league has just been remarkable. Again, I'll get into more individuals later. with specifics, but just Obi Toppin finally made shots. He was 5 for 7. He had some huge run-stopping corner threes. Ben Shepherd did not make shots, but still played over 21 minutes because his point of attack defense is so valuable. Thomas Bryant, my biggest adjustment rotationally after game 3. If you listen to that show with Kyle Taylor, I said he's got to play way less than 21 minutes. He played 7. That's been the Goldilocks number this series for him, is between like 7 and 10, just right. He can contribute in that kind of time. He had some huge boards in this game, right? So they got what they needed from Shepherd and Bryant, and the other 3 were all making shots. And the biggest stretch of the game for the Pacers offensively, and this really showed to me the ease at which they were getting shots in this game, was the middle of the third quarter. The only time in the second half it felt like, oh man, maybe this will not go the Pacers' way again. It got to 9, right? The Pacers led wire to wire. They never trailed in this game. It was only tied at 0-0. It got to 9 in the third quarter. Giannis was finally getting going. He had 8 points at halftime, and then he just started crushing to start this quarter. I think it was like 85-76 or something. 88-76, excuse me. It was an 8-point lead for the Pacers. And Giannis was up to 21. He had 13 points in the third quarter at that time. This is when the bench had their best stretch probably of the entire series. And Toppin had just come into the game. TJ McConnell, they're seeing a zone. He gets to the rim, huge layup. Giannis gets free throws. On the other end, after a foul from Ryan Rollins, TJ McConnell gets to the rim again for a huge layup. After he smoked 2 in the last game, he had 2 awesome finishes at the basket. Then the next possession, they get Pascal Siakam an open shot set up by Tyrese Halliburton. Then wide open consecutive corner threes for Obi Toppin and Ben Shepherd. One that TJ McConnell set up and one that Tyrese Halliburton set up. So it was really McConnell, Toppin, Shepherd. So 3 bench guys with those 2. The 2 stars for the Pacers, Siakam and Halliburton, a new group, a bench-heavy group, over half bench group that just stormed in that stretch. They were scoring like crazy. All of a sudden, they're up 13 again, matching punches from the Bucks, right? Giannis kept scoring, Portis kept scoring. So the second Giannis came out of the game, in the start of the fourth quarter, the Pacers' lead was still significant, and they closed the quarter strong too, right? Halliburton got some buckets, Toppin with a huge cutting in transition play to close the frame. All of a sudden, they're up 17 again. That was the best bench stretch of the series, I think, for the Pacers. Their defense wasn't perfect, but it was good enough, and their offense was awesome and against the zone that has crushed those bench groups. McConnell was finishing shots and setting up his teammates. They're flowing right into stuff regardless of the matchups. They weren't matchup hunting, which they have done sometimes when they get into those specific units against that Bucks lineup. They did none of that in this game. And altogether, the bench humming, the starters were awesome. The Pacers got whatever shot they wanted. They cleaned up. They made 50 shots in this game. They shot 60.2% from the field. That's insane. 18 for 39 from deep. The poor Bucks shoot over 40% from deep for the second time this series, and they get outshot from deep. That's actually happened to them twice in this game, in this series. The Pacers, remarkable in this game, how much the Bucks would hit a huge shot and they'd answer with a 3. 36 assists for the Pacers in this game, 25 for the Bucks. Insanely good ball movement, insanely good offensive flow, regardless of who was on the floor, rotation patterns that got lineups with the right balance of shooting and ball handling on the floor. An awesome offensive night for the Pacers, who just raced past the Bucks. If it didn't get within 8 or 9 in that brief moment in the third quarter, the Pacers would have been up double digits from the middle of the second quarter onward. They were tremendous. And when they get shots like that, even when the game gets tight-ish, 8 or 9 points in the third quarter, I just think they're going to be fine. They're going to get the shots that they like and keep the Bucks away. It happened in game 1, it happened in game 2, and it happened in game 4. And the Pacers are in the driver's seat. 3 chances to move on to the second round.